United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Patterson, would it be sufficient to simply say that all 5 commissioners are here? We'll proceed with the meeting. We don't need to do a roll call or anything.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, welcome to your first of your budget hearings. And Mr. Chris Johnson is going to lead us through. We're going to be starting with Pelican Bay Services, and he is going to navigate you through all of the necessary steps.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Christopher Johnson, your Director of Corporate Financial Management Services. As Amy said, welcome to our first of 2 required public budget hearings for the FY25, FY26 budget. Tonight's discussion will include a review of the Pelican Bay Services Division budget. We are seeking to adopt a resolution approving levying the special assessment role for the district. This action will be followed by the Board of County Commissioners budget hearing, where we will be discussing the tentative millage rates and changes to the tentative budget. Everybody's favorite part, I will read into the record the tentative millage rates. We will then adopt the tentative millage rate resolution and tentative budget resolution. And finally, we will announce the time and place for the final public hearing. Tonight, there will be an opportunity for public comment for both the Pelican Bay budget hearing and the BCC budget hearing. Agendas and speaker slips are available out in the hallway. Anyone interested in addressing the board regarding the budget must complete a slip and provide it to Mr. Miller right over there with his hand up. He will collect the slips and announce the names of the speakers at the appropriate time. And with that, I will briefly go over our budget timeline and give you a quick outline of where we've been on the path towards our first public hearing before we get started with Pelican Bay. All right, I think everyone's familiar with this. We have a few more peach-colored squares here, so we're moving our way along. So I'll just kind of go over this real quick for those that are new to this. We started the budget process in February with our budget policy discussion. That was followed by a strategic plan, priority-based budgeting workshop in March, and the adoption of the FY26 budget policy also in March. This budget policy provided the framework for the departments to build their FY25, FY26 budgets. Then in June, the county manager presented the board with her recommended budget, and the board heard a presentation from Resource X on the progress of our priority-based budgeting initiative, including Phase 2, which is now focused on process efficiencies. On July 1st, we received certified taxable value from the property appraiser. On July 8th, the board adopted the maximum millage for FY26 with the countywide and unincorporated rates set at the maximum of millage neutral. On July 11th, the board received the FY26 budget document, which included changes from the June workshop. On August 18th, the property appraiser mailed the trim notices, and they were sent to all the property owners in the county. Today is our first of 2 FY25, FY26 budget hearings. And on September 12th, and this was included in the trim notices sent out to the property owners, September 12th is the deadline to file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board. And then finally, we have our final FY25-26 budget hearing on September 18th. That is a Thursday at 5:05. And last but not least, I guess, is our office will submit the trim compliance package to the Department of Revenue in early October. With that, we'll jump right into Pelican Bay Service Division budget, as that is the first item on our docket. Mr. Dorrell and Mr. Coleman are in the room to present, and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. As has been our practice since the inception of the district, a major source of funding is a non-ad valorem assessment for both operations and capital. There is an associated ad valorem tax and millage that funds a street lighting program and our capital improvement fund within the division. This year's budget is $8,214,100. And of that amount, I'm going to break this down in a couple of ways and then answer any questions that you have. Our operations and maintenance assessment was approved with a 3% increase in the regular portion of the assessment. It does include a $45 increase as a one-time replenishment of our contingency reserve that was exhausted following Hurricanes Ian and Milton last fall. Additionally, there is a small increase in our Clam Bay cost center of $10 this coming year for some expanded service opportunities and some work that we're going to be doing within the natural resource protection area. Our capital program is where the real, I think, issue from a policy perspective for this board is. Our capital assessment is scheduled to increase on a one-time basis by $455 to help fund next fall's beach renourishment project. Again, as a result of the hurricane activity next year, Vanderbilt Beach and the Pelican Bay Beach will be renourished. We have separate programs to help reconstruct the dune and to reclaim some of the sand that overwashed the dune and in the mangrove area. We'll be doing that earlier this fall. Overall, the thing that I need to get into the record is that the total maintenance and operational assessment for next year is $5,888,165. That breaks down to $768.70 per unit. The separate capital assessment is $5,984,680 or $781.30 per equivalent residential unit. The total number of ERUs next year remain unchanged at 7,659 and 9/10 of a unit. That also include property that you own, in particularly the maintenance site where we are. And in addition, even other properties, not only the two major hotels and the Inn at Pelican Bay and the waterside shops, but even the Catholic Church in the community is contributing in support of the maintenance and operations of the community. As a quick aside, our operation facility that was destroyed during Hurricane Ian is scheduled to receive a CO later this month. It's a big deal for your employees there. It is also a welcome relief to what has been a series of trailers and ocean-going containers that we have been operating out of now for almost 3 years since the hurricane. That facility was destroyed, and with some insurance proceeds and hopefully some FEMA reimbursement, that new $5.4 million facility will reopen to the community, and we would hope to see you there at that time. The recommendation is that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the resolution that is attached to the executive summary this evening, approving both the special assessment roll for those benefiting properties that I alluded to, and also levying the combined special assessment for both operations as well as capital in the amounts that I have provided.
Right.
I can also tell you that this comes to you with a unanimous recommendation of your advisory board there and the commercial partners, and I have spoken separately to the two hotels and also the waterside shops and marketplace at Pelican Bay because they're also contributing into this. And with that, I'll stop and see if you have any questions.
All right, before we go to the public comment, are there any questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none, Mr. Miller, do we have any registered speakers online?
We do, Commissioner. If I've done this right, I believe Marcia Owenick does want to speak of this. I'm going to ask Nicole Rolando, who's online. Nicole, if you want to speak on Pelican Bay, please raise your hand on Zoom. Marcia, you're being asked to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. All right, Marcia, I see you're unmuted. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for allowing me to make a very brief comment. I am frankly surprised that the county is assessed for this non-valerium tax as well, and I get it for individual homeowners, but I find it quite surprising that the various recreational areas of Pelican Bay are not assessed this ad valorem tax. This includes the community center, their beach buildings, and so on. And when I look at the tax bills for these, it says they're recreational areas. Well, I would say the library and the park are certainly recreational areas, yet the county is assessed this non-valerium tax. the police department and the fire department are in the service category and they are taxed as well. I don't understand this. It's not helpful to the budget of the county to have to pay this ad valorem assessment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that was the only registered speaker we have for the Pelican Bay portion of the budget.
Mr. Doral, do you have any response to that, or?
Quickly, I think it's important. There is a statute, and Mr. Klatzkow could help me with this, that provides for a uniform method of assessments statewide for situations like this, where we are levying a non-ad valorem assessment against all benefiting properties. And way back in the origination of Pelican Bay and the former Pelican Bay Improvement District, there was a methodology that was performed that assigned those benefits to all the properties within the community. And that's why I alluded to the fact that whether it's the Catholic Church or your library or the fire station, the Golf and Country Club there pay a substantial number of ERUs in support of the district. But all of that is prescribed by Florida law within that statute. I'm not sure if it's 125 or 127.
I think we're ready for a motion. Mr. Doral, you want to let us know what the motion
Yes,
is?
sir.
that
Again,
will
the
meet your
appropriate
needs?
motion would be to approve and adopt the resolution, authorize the chairman to sign the resolution for a number that will be reserved to both approve the special assessment roll that I just alluded to and levying a special assessment against those benefiting properties within the district.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to do exactly what he said.
We have a
I'll
motion?
second
And we have a
exactly
second.
what he said.
We have a motion and a second. I don't see any discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you
Thank
for
you, Mr. Doral.
what you do collectively, and we would hope to see you at our dedication perhaps in a
Be
month.
there.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners. Before we jump into the board's budget hearing, as I stated earlier, the trim notices were mailed out to all county property owners on August 18th, 2025. Our office, and I'm sure all your offices, have received many calls regarding these notices. So I thought this would be a good time to do a quick educational review of a trim notice, a couple minutes here. So I'm just going to start, and I'm sorry this is hard to read because there's a lot going on the trim notice, but if you look up, good, my mouse works on this, but we'll start at the top here. Your market value of your property is listed up here by the number 1. That is the just value of the property determined by the property appraiser as of January 1st, the beginning of this year, so 2025. Down here where the number 2 is, that's the assessed value of the property for assessment, and that is the amount of the property less any Save Our Homes benefit, which is the benefit you get from the Constitution of Florida, where you only can be raised 3% a year if you're a homesteaded property. And then there's also a 10% non-homestead cap there that reduces the market value to the assessed value for homeowners who are not residents or not homesteaded. There's a few other ones in there, agriculture and working waterfront as well. From there, you take the assessed value and you reduce it by any exemptions. The most popular exemption, as most of us probably have here, is the homestead exemption. That was previously $50,000 a year. Amendment 5 that was on the ballot last fall now increases that with CPI. So for this year, as you can see here on this example, it's $50,722. And then finally, that gets you to number 3 here, which is your taxable value. This is the amount that is used to calculate the tax levied for the property. Moving down here to these columns, you have column 1, 2, and 3, and I'll go over those in a minute. But the 4 and the 5 here, the 4 is the millage rate or tax rate per $1,000 of taxable value, and then finally the number 5 is the tax amount, the amount of property tax, and that is calculated by taking number 3, your taxable value, multiplying it by number 4, your millage rate, and then dividing it by 1,000, and that's how you get to the numbers you see in column 5. So to go on with the colors here, and I will say I'm not very good at computers. This was kind of hard to do, so I apologize. I can't really see through it. But I just wanted to point out that the yellow area here, this line right here, is the BCC controlled taxing districts. That's under IDA. So that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now everybody's tax bills are a little different. You may have multiple MSTUs that apply to us. You may this person has just the general fund and the unincorporated area general fund. But this is the area right here that is under Board of County Commissioners' control. The blue area in column 1 here is last year's tax rate and property taxes. The purple area is your rolled back tax rate and property taxes. And finally, the green area here is this year's proposed tax rates and property taxes. When you look all the way down at the bottom, the gray area, that's the total property taxes for each of those columns. So all of the taxing authorities. And again, here the yellow is the boards. They have public schools on this one. You have South Florida Water Management District, then you have independent districts that includes the Collier Mosquito Control and the Greater Naples Fire District. So those all add up in the gray to get you your overall millage rate, which on this example is 10.5 for the proposed, 9.6625 for the rollback, and 10.07, I think that's 00 for the for last year's. So in this example here, when you're looking at this, you can see the millage rate went up by about, looks like it's 0.4358, and that amount there is mainly due to the Greater Naples Fire. Again, they had a referendum and they are increasing their millage from 1.5 to 2. Any questions on any of that before we hop into what we have to do tonight? All right, thank you. All right, so with that, I would like to welcome everyone to the first of 2 public hearings on the Collier County Government Fiscal Year 2025-26 budget. Fiscal year 2025-26 begins October 1st, 2025, and runs through September 30th, 2026. The public budget hearing, in September must follow a specific format pursuant to the State of Florida Truth and Millage or TRIM guidelines. This presentation is scripted, so I apologize in advance. Pursuant to the TRIM statutes, so if you will indulge me a while, I'm going to read some things into the record as we normally do, then there will be time for public comment, and then we will move on to the action items on the agenda. Your agenda contains the specific sequence of agenda items to be covered pursuant to the statute. This hearing was advertised as part of the TRIM notices mailed to all the county property owners on the week of August 18th. The final budget hearing is 2 weeks from tonight on September 18th, 2025. The final hearing will be noticed as part of a statutory advertising requirement contained in the Truth and Millage statutes. The final hearing notice advertisement will appear in the Naples Daily News on September 15th, 2025, and depending on action tonight, will either contain a notice of proposed tax increase or a budget hearing notice. A notice of proposed tax increase is necessary when the county's tentatively adopted aggregate millage rate is greater than the current year's aggregate rollback rate. A budget hearing notice is necessary when the current year aggregate millage rate is less than or equal to the current year's aggregate rollback rate. The final tax rate and budget decisions will be made at the final hearing on September 18th, 2025. As stated earlier, agenda and speaker slips are available in the hallway. Anyone interested in addressing the Board of County Commissioners regarding the county's budget must complete a speaker slip. Again, Mr. Troy Miller is over there, and he will collect the slips. Following some introductory remarks regarding tax rates and changes to the tentative budget released in mid-July, there will be an opportunity under Agenda Item 1C for public comments. Speakers will be called by name. The TRIM notice mailed to all property owners indicated that close of business 5 p.m. September 12, 2025 is the deadline for property owners to contact the property appraiser and file a petition for market value adjustment with the Value Adjustment Board. With that, we'll move on to the taxable value and millage rates. Taxable value for the county increased by 8.49%. and 8.81% in the unincorporated area. It increased to $164.9 billion and $104.9 billion respectively. $4.3 billion of the $12.9 billion increase in the countywide taxable value is net new taxable value. Likewise, in the unincorporated area general fund, $3.2 billion of the $8.5 billion increase is attributed to net new taxable value. Of note, the Florida Constitution provides a 3% limit to annual assessed value increases for homestead property for all taxing authorities and a 10% limit to the annual assessed value increase for non-homesteaded property for all taxing authorities with the exception of state and local school board taxing authorities. As a result, at the maximum millage rate, a typical homestead property owner would see a modest increase in the overall BCC-related taxes due this year, and non-homesteaded property owners would be limited to a 10% increase as it pertains to county taxes. Millage rates. This brings us to item 1A on the agenda. Discussion of the percent increase in millage over the rollback rate needed to fund the budget, and the reasons ad valorem tax revenues above the rollback rate as calculated on state DR Form 420 are being increased. The rollback rate is defined as the tax rate necessary to generate prior year tax revenues, and this tax rate is calculated not including taxable values associated with new construction, additions, deletions, and rehabilitative improvements. The board adopted maximum millage rates in July at the millage neutral operating levy for all county-wide levies. Millage neutral rates are 3.0107, 2.0246, and 2.2096 for the General Fund, Water Pollution Control Fund, and Conservation Collier Fund, respectively. Likewise, the unincorporated area general fund maximum millage rate was also set at millage neutral, or 0.6844. Levies for the general fund and unincorporated area general fund together represent the majority of the total aggregate taxes levied across all county taxing authorities for FY 2026. The FY 2026 tentative general fund and unincorporated area general fund operating and capital budgets as presented are based upon the board adopted maximum millage rates. Countywide funds, including the general fund and unincorporated area general fund, proposed tax rates are higher than the rollback rate. Collier County taxable value has increased for FY 26 by 8.49% countywide and 8.81% within the unincorporated area general fund. With an increasing taxable value environment, the rollback rate will be lower than the millage neutral rate. This is the case, I'm sorry, for FY 2026. Any questions on any of that before I move on? All right. This slide contains the MSTU millage rates. Per policy, these budgets were established to cover operational needs for FY 26 and any planned capital allocations. The proposed maximum millage rates were set to support those budgets. Of note on this list, Haldeman Creek is proposed to be increased back to the customary 1.0000 mils. Forest Lakes Roadway and Drainage MSTU is proposed to be reduced from 4 to 2.5 mils. Sable Palm MSTU is proposed to be reestablished at a millage rate of 1.0000. And the private road emergency repair MSTU is proposed to be established at 1.000 as well. All right. Referring to Exhibit 1A on 1A page 1, packet page 37, millage rates for each Collier County taxing authority have been established pursuant to board guidance. The roster of tax rates adopted by the board on July 8th, 2025 represents the maximum property rates that can be levied for FY 26. The cumulative aggregate rollback rate for all county taxing authorities, exclusive of debt service, totals 3.5870 per $1,000 of taxable value. The proposed aggregate rate for all Collier County taxing authorities, exclusive of debt service, totals 3.7675 per $1,000 of taxable value. This represents an increase of 5.03% over the aggregate rollback rate, and adoption of these rates as the tentative rates would necessitate a notice of proposed tax increase advertisement for trim purposes and not simply a budget summary advertisement. Final millage rates will be adopted by the board on September 18th, 2025. Any questions on any of that before I move on to the changes? All right. This is item 1B, review and discussion of changes to the tentative budget. For tonight's hearing, changes from FY 2026 tentative budget that was given to everyone in July as noted within Exhibit 1B, pertain to customary adjustments to the tax collector and property appraiser's budgets. These budgets were received in August. Adjustments to certain funds reflecting FY 2025 revenue and expense changes, which resulted in adjustments to the FY 26 carry forward or beginning cash balance. Transfer adjustments for required rebates to the U.S. Department of Treasury related to Series 2020A Special Obligation Revenue Bonds and Series 2021 Collier County Water Sewer District Revenue Bonds. Adjustments for position reclassifications, transfers, and BCC-approved additions, and other customary and routine revenue and expense adjustments required to support capital projects or operations as the FY 2026 fiscal year begins. These fund level adjustments occur as a matter of normal operations or are necessary in accordance with previous board action or direction. Detailed budgetary resolution changes are found within Exhibit 1B, pages 4 to 24, or packet pages 43 to 63. A summary of these actions is described within Exhibit 1B, page 1 through 3, or packet page 40 to 42. The gross budget change amount is a reduction of $873,200. There are no proposed changes to the maximum millage rate set by the board on July 8th, 2025. Any questions on these budget changes since July? All right, Mr. Chairman, that moves us to item 1C, public comment and questions.
Mr. Miller?
We have 2 registered speakers on Zoom. We're going to go back to Marcia Owenick first and then to Nicole Rolando. Marcia, you're being asked to unmute yourself again. If you'll do so, I see you've done that. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Marcia Owenick, and I live in Naples Park. Thank you, commissioners, department leaders, and staff for your hard work in establishing a budget that meets the goal the commissioners set a few months ago. Hopefully, this budget will allow all county residents to enjoy the efficient service I have personally witnessed since I moved here in 2015 with regards to the many things we need from county government, including waste management, refurbishing infrastructure and storm sewers in my neighborhood, and care before and after the inevitable hurricanes, among many others. I look forward to continue enjoying the public library system, which we learned recently is already the most cost-effective in terms of per capita costs in Southwest Florida, and especially to using my local branch, Vanderbilt Beach Library, which serves an important part of the county population. Be sure our small team will continue to both ensure this branch is allowed to continue to serve that population well and to support the general well-being of the entire library system. Commissioners, I caution you as you continue to work with consultants to further improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the government to be sure the goals for their work are clear. Much of my career in an operating company of Johnson & Johnson was spent on process improvement and cost reduction, both while I was leading organizations designing, delivering, and supporting projects, and while I was director of process excellence, in which I oversaw training of people to do this kind of work and oversaw their projects. So I personally know the difficulties and benefits of this work. When I was director of process excellence, we drilled our students and practitioners that it is critical to establish useful metrics and measures to define the work to be done and to track its progress. Sometimes this meant the project wasn't appropriate to do, as the benefits were going to be small compared with the benefits from working on other projects. Process improvements are the most important and the most difficult. Cutting inefficiencies in processes is hard work, especially when the process crosses multiple departments. I know this personally from my work improving the product development and delivery process and the complaint handling process, both processes that involve many departments of the company. The project to improve the procurement process is an important and critical one, and it will require a clear plan and much patience to get it defined and then get it fully implemented. Frankly, implementation is the hardest and trickiest to do, as people's jobs will be changing and management is impatient to get results. For this project and all others that they propose, please instruct your consultants to be very clear about the metrics they are using, what the current state of those metrics are, what the targets are, and how they establish them, and demand timelines with clear milestones to monitor progress. The county is growing at a rapid pace. You have much work to do to manage that growth carefully so that citizens who have moved here and who will move here will want to continue to stay here. Thank you for all the work you are doing, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, your next and final speaker is Melinda Brankow, Nicole, I got that wrong, Nicole Rolando. Nicole, you're being asked to unmute yourself if you'll do so at this time. I see you have that, Rolando, or Nicole, you have 3 minutes.
I wanted to thank you for all the efforts and the time that you spent on this to enhance our community. I've lived here since '92, and I hope to continue using the Vanderbilt Library. I support all the comments by Mrs. Onick, and my intentions in following your processes is to save the library, which it appears you did, and to continue to give us a good service because you have young and older population and we want them to continue reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our final registered speaker, Mr. Chairman.
Close the public hearing. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That moves us on to a time for discussion.
I don't see any lights lit up here, so unless there's, Commissioner Hall.
So the purpose of tonight is to have a preliminary talk about what we're going to finally do on the last Thursday, on the 18th.
Correct.
Okay. And the budget guidance that came forth earlier in the year was 3% operational, 5% capital.
Yes, it was, and that was under an umbrella of 5% increase in taxable value.
Okay. Well, the way that I see this, going back, the proposed budget at millage neutral, that to me was a maximum figure, and that would give us an additional $38 million in revenue with the increase in values and the net new stuff.
Let me pull up a slide for you, Commissioner. I think it'll show exactly what you're looking at.
One.
Yep. This one right here. In the general fund, yes, 38.2.
And so the difference of the rolled back rate that we had, if we wanted to go roll back again, the difference would be $25 million is what we would be short.
In the general fund, 25.4.
I'm only going to talk about general fund, yeah.
Correct, yes.
Okay. 4 or 5 things. When I was elected, I ran hard on smaller government, better efficiency, less taxes, less government. And I signed a no tax increase pledge, and I meant it. I meant it with everything in me. I understand that we can't roll back our taxes every year in perpetuity. I'm smart enough to know that. 2 years ago, we all agreed that we would do the hard work. We would make the hard decisions. We would go to work, roll up our sleeves, take the deep dive, and do what was necessary to establish our priority-based budget based on the data that came forth. So we hired Resource X. We got the insights from them, which is a soft term for how to raise revenue on the revenue side. And we're just now getting into phase 2 where we're working on the expense side or the efficiency side. They're going to call those things options, viable options for us. Like I said, once we do that, once we establish our priority-based budget, those are going to be the bones that we can operate on with small adjustments year after year. The framework will be there, the hard work will be done, and the only way to get that is to let the process run out. I didn't dream that we would be going into the 3rd year, but we're going into the 3rd year. Our budget policy, like I said, and our adopted millage, I consider to be a maximum. Would it be just really easy to just do it? Yeah, it would really be easy just to do it. We've already done the work, we've already done the resolutions, we've already got everything approved, and we could just go, boom, let's do it. But I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I want to continue my commitment to do the hard work and to get this budget where we really want it going into the future. We have the data, we have the viable options to make the harder decisions. They're not going to happen tonight. They're not going to happen by next Thursday night. Any increase in the general fund on the taxpayer's bill is a tax increase. You can say millage neutral is not a tax increase. You can say it till your hair falls out. It is a tax increase. As a matter of fact, it's a tax increase to 38 million bucks overall. The net new values were almost $13 million. So 13 million of the 38 is in growth. That leaves us $25 million short. So I want to let this process roll out. I want to see it and give it some time to roll out while not being a burden on the taxpayer. And to do that, we've got our budget set, and to go to the rollback rate and to collect the same amount, we're $25 million short. I know that this is not going to be very popular, and I really don't give a rip. And I'll repeat, don't give a rip. I don't want to take from another fund, but I do want to charge a less millage rate on that fund. I'm talking about Conservation Collier. Last year at the rollback rate, I think they paid like a 0.20 something millage, and it generated $32 million. I would like to make up this $25 million deficit and charge whatever millage we have to charge to leave $10 million in Conservation Collier and let the $25 million roll to the rollback. Am I making sense? You know what I want to do.
I think I hear you, Commissioner. Reducing the.
We're going to charge the same rate. We're going to charge the same 3.0 something that we did last year to the taxpayer. However, 25 million of it's going to go to the general fund and not to the Conservation Collier. So you're going to charge a lesser millage for the Conservation Collier portion.
Gotcha. So you're going to reduce the Conservation Collier millage to make the countywide be at millage. I'm sorry, at rollback.
Right, and that gives us the money to operate till we let this process roll out. It's going to leave $10 million in the land acquisition fund for Conservation Collier. At the same time, I think we're about to put $60 million in the maintenance. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
The current budget is putting about $62 million.
So there's $42 million in there now. So
into
we're going to leave, and that's what's really important in perpetuity is that maintenance account. And if by chance something came along that was a dream property in 2026, we're not to the position where we would have to just pass. We still have the funds in the maintenance that we could use to purchase that. We still have $42 million left. I think they're going to be a balance of 52 or 62 million. If we put 10 million in there this coming year, what's in there? What would be the total?
Are you talking land acquisition,
Yeah, land
Commissioner?
acquisition.
So the FY26 budget, and again, this is total budget for that fund is $56.3 million approximately. 34.3 of that is for land acquisition.
So if we put 10 more in there, they'd still have $44 million as land acquisition.
That's based on the whole amount going in. So land acquisition would be down to 10 million for that specific line item. The fund would drop by about 25 million. So you go from 56 to 31 in the land acquisition fund, budget wise.
And then in addition, we have 64 million in maintenance. There would be 121 million total if we went with this proposed budget, so less 25 of that. So we're still going to have.
Correct. If you add the two funds together, next year's budget, the two funds together, it's about 121 plus $1 million. If you took out 25 from it.
So we'll still have $95 million in the whole program.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's pretty robust. So those are my thoughts.
Let me ask a quick question. We do have the Williams property acquisition that's going to close here fairly soon. So that's going to reduce that amount, that number, the 95 million by how much?
Commissioner, that was taken into account in the forecast
Okay, so
moving into
all
next
these
year.
numbers-
So those numbers that I was speaking to are next year's numbers. And I'm just going to look back to make sure. Yep. It was in the forecast. So those numbers will be
12 or 13 million.
those numbers for next year will be after that
They're
property
big numbers,
closes.
Chris. Get it right.
I do.
Take your
Well, I
time.
got these people behind me, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, that purchase of Williams Ranch was 12 or 13 million dollars for the conservation cost portion of it.
If I had one more vote, you would have kept that money.
Commissioner Cowell.
Yeah, I want to just get clarity. So I'm writing all these notes down, trying to figure out what we're talking about here. So what Commissioner Hall's proposing, he's just looking at the general fund, saying we go with, when we vote next meeting and we hit the gavel and everything's done, said and done, we would have the rollback rate percentage for the general fund. We make up the 25 million that we lose for the rollback, moving to the rollback out of adjusting the millage rate to conservation Collier. But the water pollution control, are you considering leaving that at the neutral?
Yeah, that's
So
just
we're
two-
only the
that's
one
just-
we're really
that's just
making up is the
$200,000, yeah.
difference through the
So-
conservation Collier.
So if I may, Commissioner, looking at this slide here, you can see the millage rates. So what I think Commissioner Hall is describing is this is the rollback rate here.
Yeah.
These three add up to 3.0781 at rollback, and at millage neutral it adds up to 3.2449. We would reduce the conservation Collier number to get this number to equal this number. Essentially is what I'm. Am I correct,
You
Commissioner?
got it.
Okay.
I'm glad I communicated so well.
Well, not actually, because if the water pollution control stayed at neutral, that number would be slightly larger.
The two numbers here for general fund and water pollution would stay the same. You'd reduce conservation Collier by this amount here. Where is it? 0.1668 to get to this number. So essentially, this would go down, and that would make up for those two staying the same.
You've got a calculator there. Can you
I do.
give us the
Yeah, I think-
number so we know what we're talking about?
Certainly. So conservation Collier would go
So
to
if water pollution would go back to rollback.
no, it would stay.
But you keep saying that, so that number is going to change. It's going to stay at 0.0246.
So yeah, let me just.
So that number would be actually larger than 3.078.
Just so I understand
The
it.
number's so
is-
small, it's almost-
I'm not sure if I understand this, but all the millage rates would be millage neutral, except conservation Collier would be reduced enough to have that equate to.
Correct.
No,
Correct.
General would be rollback. All the rest would be neutral except for conservation Collier and general. General would go back,
Okay,
would reduce, and
No, we're gonna-
conservation Collier would
Now, we're going to achieve, under this scenario, we achieve rollback in the general fund. So that's general fund, water pollution, conservation Collier, by reducing conservation Collier's millage to achieve the rollback rate. So general fund itself and water pollution would remain at millage neutral, and conservation Collier would be rolled back actually beyond the rollback rate to achieve the combined rollback.
It's just going to make up that 25 million.
And that millage rate would be 0.0428.
Okay, wait a minute. I can't write that fast.
Oh, no
so
problem.
you're on conservation Collier millage rate, which right now is 0.2096, and that would go to what?
0.0428. And I'm going to
Chairman,
double
can I-
check my number.
Can I clarify one thing on that?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Hall?
I just wanted to clarify on this, if we do this, this is not a precedence. I'm not going to be looking to do this year after year after year. I was hoping that we didn't have to do it at all, but since the process has taken us now into the third year, it's the only way that we can be fair to the taxpayers. Leave conservation Collier in a robust situation and let us get the hard work done in phase 2 this year with Resource X. And so I just wanted the public to know that this is not going to something that I'm going to be pitching year after year after year. And I'm serious about that.
I guess my question, I just want to make it clear, the day I vote on this, the general fund millage rate is gonna be the rollback rate.
Correct.
Correct.
The combined.
The combined rate. So when you look at your trim notice, and let me just go back to this might also help. So and I apologize, this is small, but you see on your trim notice where it says county general fund, and the rate here, the rollback rate is 3.0781. That's the combination of those three taxing authorities.
understand that,
So
yeah.
so yes, that would be at rollback.
I understand that, but he specifically pointed out 25 some million dollars. That is just the first line of the difference, and he's having you make up that difference by changing the millage rate of Conservation Collier, not changing the water pollution rate. That's what I'm trying to say.
so-
He didn't choose all the lines. He just chose the 25 million. So what I'm trying to say is the only one that's going to be at rollback will be the top line at 2 point whatever. Then conservation will be diminished to make up the 25 million on the far right column.
I get your question. You're 100% right. We would have to reduce it by this number, $27.5 million, to get everything to roll back.
To get everything
so
to roll
yes,
back,
yes.
yeah.
And to do
But
that,
that's not what you said.
that's the
was
number
just
that
talking
I
general
calculated.
All right,
Okay.
so
All right.
what does that leave you for Conservation Collier for the millage rate then?
That would be the one I just gave you.
So that number's still correct, all right.
Yep.
Commissioner McDaniel?
I can see where you're going. I can understand what it is that you're doing. But I think we have to give consideration to what we as a commission have already accomplished. 3 years ago, we rewrote the vision statement, the mission statement, the business plan, and budget priorities. The next year, we did a rollback and saved the taxpayers $62 million, and that carries forward again for the next year. And then last year, we did a rollback again on all of our taxable values, and that was equivalent to about 42 million, plus minus somewhere in there.
Here's the slide on that, Commissioner.
There you are, right there. That's the cumulative reduction in taxes that we've been able to effectuate.
And that's the 152.6 million. If you go to the bottom there, that would be this year at millage neutral. It would, compared to the old rate from 2022, would be another $104.2 million.
Combined, that's been the effectuated savings, if you will, that we've been able to accomplish. I would give some thought, and I'm not saying total yes, and I'm not saying total no to what you've proposed, but I would give some thought to a rationale that you and I both know about, and that's you cannot cut your way to prosperity. And we are direly deficient in our reserves, especially the new reserve account, the 301 fund, the capital asset replacement and maintenance fund. And in my thoughts as I was going through all these numbers and that sort those things, I had intentions of staying at rate neutral. Our budget that staff prepared this year in February and we worked all the way through is prepared and on the expense side at rollback, +3 on O&M and 5 on capital. Is that correct?
It's
The
no,
expense budget?
It's at that 5% increase, which is a little above rollback, about $10 million, because that was budget policy, was the 5% taxable value increase.
Where did I get the 3 and the 5 at?
That was the operating and capital compliance that we gave the departments.
Okay, so that was the compliance that was done. So it
Correct.
was, but it was prepared at rollback plus 5%.
It was
Year-over-year
repaired.
expense.
It was prepared initially. Initially was the 5% increase in taxable value. The current budget is at millage neutral. That includes
Maybe I'm not
expanders.
asking the question properly. The budget that we put forth to be adopted by our departments was prepared on rollback plus 5.
It was prepared. It
Year-over-year
was prepared at
expense?
5% taxable value increase. So that's what we utilized as the model. Now we gave them a 3% rail, if you will, on the operating side and a 5% rail on the capital side. But when you put all that together, it was under an umbrella of a 5% taxable value increase, which at the time, given the state's estimates, we thought would be right around the net new taxable value increase. It came in a little lower.
And you're talking about taxable value, and you're talking about revenues that come from staying rate neutral or going to rollback. I'm talking about the expense budget that we put forth in February was based upon last year's taxable value.
Plus 5%.
Plus
Yes,
5%.
correct.
So that's, he and I go round and round and round because he's a fund accountant. He lives over in this accounting world called funds, and it's
I don't
not
get it.
and that's FUND, not FUN. And so my thoughts are we need to fund our reserves. We're direly deficient in that, specifically in that one fund, which is the 301 fund. We've got close to $2 billion worth of assets that need to be accounted for, that need to be maintained. So I'm not saying yes to your proposition, Commissioner Hall. I'm not saying no. I have to give that some consideration. I also know that we have, with the acquisition of the Williams farm, we're going to accomplish a comp plan amendment. We're going to swap those farm fields out of the RLSA in a developable area. We'll still use them for our own development purposes, but we're going to move that slough into the RLSA, and we all know how much of an environmental asset that is going to be to our community, alleviating flooding in Immokalee, water quality going over into Lake Trafford, and so on. So my thought process, I'm leaning more towards staying at rate neutral and plowing the spread between rollback and rate neutral, plowing that into the 301 fund. That fences it off. It can't be spent on anything along those lines, except for staff-driven and board-directed expenditures.
Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not saying yes or no either because we don't have to, right? We're coming back in here on the 18th of September.
We do have to be a little careful about what we say yes to tonight,
Yeah.
folks, because
So-
it will limit us to what
So
we say
here's my
yes to
thoughts.
the next meeting.
I understand the math. I don't need to see any of the slides. I get it. All great questions as we're trying to interpret the numbers, but it's clear, to get to that rollback number, you change conservation Collier, all the other numbers stay the same. You change conservation Collier down to 0.0428, and it gives you the bottom line rollback number when everything else stays millage neutral, which is what we were leaning towards. I'm not saying yes or no either, but my initial feeling, and I like the brainstorming that we're doing here, but my initial feeling is we've tinkered with conservation Collier quite a bit, and it's the only thing on the slide that the voters really voted for separately. And so I don't mind seeing the numbers on the 18th, and by us talking about it here, I'm sure our inboxes are going to be filled with citizen feedback, and that's all part of being an elected official. I don't want to do a knee jerk because we heard a really interesting idea at 5:58 today, and we don't have to say yes or no now, but my initial thoughts are caution, because like I said, we've tinkered with conservation Collier to move some money around, and I think I know that was a smart thing to do. I supported it. We all, got rocks thrown through our windows by some people, but we were trying to make sure that fund just didn't get money thrown in it, that it was actually managed properly. We totally changed the whole conservation Collier program, leadership, and it's now managed and led much better. But I'd need to chew on this one a little bit too, maybe similar to Commissioner McDaniel, because I go back to this is a citizen voted on program. My initial thoughts deep down were if we thought that the fund was fully funded or had enough money in it, then one of our proposals could be, hey, send this back to the polls, have citizens decide if they want to keep conservation Collier funded or if they want to fund it less, or but it's the one thing that has citizen input. that the other things don't. You know, we're here to make command decisions for the citizens, but Conservation Collier is a little bit different of an animal. So I'm not saying yes or no. I think we should proceed with caution before it looks like we're haphazardly moving too much money around without thought to it. On the flip side, I know none of us are oblivious to some slides that show a huge amount of investment that's still needed in the county. None of us are oblivious to that. So, you know, I supported the millage neutral rate because I still don't think we've gotten we've done a deep enough dive with Resource X. We've gotten all that feedback. I mean, it's actually not I don't think it's 100% correct to say we've been in it for 2 years. You know, I mean, Resource X needed time to do some things, and we're just starting to see some of the ideas and the fruit and whatnot. And in conclusion, I'll just say, and you and I had this conversation, Chris, aren't we going to be sitting right back here in January, which is just a few months from now? So if we decided to not do it, make a big, giant, huge muscle movement, or make some big sort of change, and we realize we should have, or we could have, or now we have more information from Resource X, we're going to be sitting here in a few months with, I would hope, a lot more information in our hand, not only from our constituents, but from our consultant that's peeling back the onion and having us take a look at things. And I think we would be making much more educated adjustments at that point. So that's sort of where I'm sitting now. I have until September 18th to think about it. But I just feel like we've tinkered with Conservation Collier quite a bit for the advantage of the county. Anything more aggressively, it starts to be something that I question.
And you are correct. The timeline does start over January, February.
Right.
For me, I think I can say that I would be a no on the proposal, and there are a couple reasons for that. If we reduce the millage rate for Conservation Collier to 0.0428, it's never going back up. There's no way we're going to raise that rate because that will result in a millage rate increase, and we're not going to do that. So what we're doing if we do this is we are basically saying, I don't know how much money you generate at 0.0428, but that would be the new permanent millage rate for Conservation Collier until we increase that at some point in time, but which would result in a millage increase. So we're not going to do that. So for me, that's kind of a hard no on that proposal. But how much money does that 0.0428 raise? I think you said about 10 million.
It's $7 million.
7 million. Okay.
Little over 7.
So that's one thing. I don't know how Conservation Collier gets put back up to the 0.25 or the 0.2096. So I would not support that proposal. I believe that that millage neutral is the way to go. That's the position I would take. I realize that is a tax increase, but we have needs in this community that we're going to have a difficulty meeting if we continue to roll the millage rates back. Marco Island is a perfect example. They've boasted about how they've rolled the millage rate back year after year after year. This year they initially started off with a 30% increase proposed for their millage rate. They've reduced that to a 20% increase in their millage rate this year because they continue to reduce the millage rate to rollback without the proper consideration for the future needs of Marco Island. And I think that if we're not careful, we're going to be doing the same thing. So my vote is going to be with millage neutral. But if there is a motion made in reference to this particular proposal, I will not support it because I think that's really gutting Conservation Collier. And as Commissioner Castro pointed out, that's the one line item that 70% plus of the voters in Collier County approved. I don't see anybody else lit up. Any other comments? Then Commissioner Colwell.
Thank you, Chairman. It sounds like our discussion is always, it's either millage neutral or rollback. Is there an in-between?
Yep. You can go anywhere in between.
I mean, we look at what was it? 4.3 billion and 3.2 billion in new taxable value. So this taxable value wasn't involved in last year's budget when we rolled back to millage neutral. So that wouldn't be new taxes. We're not raising taxes on anybody. That's the taxes they came in at.
Correct, and it's 4.2 countywide. The 3.2 is a portion of the 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and yes, you're correct. That's net new taxable value. So new rooftops.
So in reality, they're coming in at the tax rate what they're coming in at. So you're not really raising taxes on them. It's new to the county. It's a new revenue.
Correct.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, so there's probably a difference here that we can probably come to a point where we can actually not be at millage neutral, still lower the taxes to a point, and still achieve what we want to achieve, and not go all the way back to rollback. Because I'll be honest, I think we need to have a serious conversation here in the near future about the percentages. And if we take, like Commissioner Saunders just said, if we keep taking conservation Collier down, our power we have is the fact that whatever they collect, we have the power to put it in what pot we want to put it in. As the Board of County Commissioners, it's part of what we can do. And historically, we always did 25% to the maintenance fund. So I think the maintenance fund is the most important thing moving forward. And if we diminish what we're going to collect on it, we're going to have a harder time getting to a magic number to get to the point where we're working off interest to maintain these properties into perpetuity. So that's something that I wanted to have that serious discussion at some point, that maybe we need to do a 50-50 moving forward. But if we diminish this to a point where it's only making $7 million a year, it's not going to achieve that. I just have a hard time seeing that happening, regardless if we increase the percentage over to the maintenance.
And if I may, Commissioner, the updated budget for Conservation Collier is putting about 50% of the new tax into the maintenance fund. So with your new ordinance, we were able to do that. It's up to you guys. It's not as prescribed as it was in the past. So
I like that.
So I just, there's a number there somewhere that I want to find, and I just don't, I don't have a big enough brain to do that math. But I think if you take the new taxable values, you subtract that from something and figure out where we're at, and we're not raising taxes, we're lowering taxes, but we're not going all the way back to rollback at some point. I think there's a number there. So I just don't want to get stuck at having one or the other. It seems like that's where we're at.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, the difference could be we could raise the Conservation Collier millage to only take 12 million, and then lower the we could lower the millage neutral to make a little bit to make up that 25 million bucks. We could combine those two, because that's what Commissioner Kowal was talking about. There's a number in the middle somewhere. And I just want to say, I could leave the Conservation Collier thing alone. I would love to fully fund them to 0.25 mils from now on, so that they can all live happily ever after. If they had 300 million in their bank for maintenance in perpetuity, they're going to need it eventually. So I disagreed with Commissioner Saunders on that. Would say that we're never going to get back there. I only wanted to do that while we allowed Resource X's process to roll out. Once that process rolls out, if we don't achieve the savings that we think that we can get, we're just going to go with it. It is what it is. But until we get to that, I was just trying to find a happy medium to let the process roll out, raise the 25 million that we would be short. So we would basically have the same amount of money at millage neutral, but we would charge the taxpayers rollback for the general fund and make up the difference with a lower millage rate for Conservation Collier this 1 year. And I'll go on record saying I'll leave Conservation Collier alone after this year.
All right. Just a question for the county attorney in terms of whatever the motion is that we make tonight in terms of, because we're going to talk about a millage rate that we're going to be setting tonight.
You're not setting the millage rate, you're setting the maximum millage rate.
I hadn't finished my question, Mr. Glasgow. That we're setting a millage rate, we're voting on a millage rate tonight. That millage rate will be the maximum that we can consider at the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted that to be clarified for the record, that everybody knew that, talk about the next budget hearing, but if we vote on a particular millage rate tonight, even though it's not the permanent one, it is going to be one that's going to be our cap going forward. So, Commissioner McDaniel.
I'll make a motion, we stay at rate neutral.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the
And that's
motion?
just gonna be for the discussion of tonight. That just
That's
keeps the
correct.
maximum.
That's correct. I mean,
Do
that's
it.
correct.
We can sit here and debate this all night long, but we're not.
No,
we're not gonna make
I was
a
gonna
motion.
say, I don't think I need, I'm not gonna make a motion for what my
We're not
comments.
making the sausage until the 18th.
But, you know, your motion's going to pass, so I'm going to vote for it, and I assume it'll probably pass unanimously. But when we get here in 2 weeks, we need to have some kind of idea in our minds individually as to where we want to go with this, because we'll be here until 2 o'clock in the morning again.
No.
If we don't let staff have some idea of what we're thinking. So Commissioner LaCastro?
I'll just make a comment. I just want to make sure we don't put the cart before the horse. I mean, I appreciate everything that's being said here by Commissioner Hall and all the commissioners, but I would like to see a little more meat on the bone from Resource X, and I think it's coming. We're deeper into it, and I'd be very comfortable doing something aggressive if I had some evidence in my hand that, wow, we just found a big chunk of savings here, and we decided that this program was overfunded, and we're spending too much for this. And, you know, I think that's the more prudent way to do it, not make a major muscle movement now because we're hopeful. You know, they always say hope's not a course of action. I also think if we don't make a big muscle movement, and I think we are making a muscle movement, millage neutral, let's not. That's a pretty big deal. Like Commissioner Saunders just said, in my own district, Marco Island's, you know, fighting pretty hard in other counties. You know, millage neutral is like a dream. So I think we've done some good things here because we're looking at where we can find efficiencies and maximize Resource X's recommendations, and even the own things, the things that we are finding on our own, and as well as the hard work that our county manager and her staff's doing. But like I said, we're going to blink and we're going to be back in here in January. And I think when I see some meat on the bone and I see some savings, I think it's a lot easier to decide to move some money around when we know what we're moving. And I think also, too, it incentivizes not only Resource X, but us specifically to make sure that we keep a sense of urgency because we're trying to save even more money for the taxpayer or be more efficient with their taxes, and we're as we march towards that January date, knowing that we should have a lot more detail. I think we'll all work a little bit maybe harder, faster, dig a little deeper, because that's where we're really looking to make changes that make sense. Possibly, I just don't think we're there yet, but. Like Commissioner Saunders said, we just voted on what would be the maximum, which would be millage neutral, but the 18th could be a long meeting if we don't do our homework between now and then.
We're ready for it if we need to.
Chris is gonna be in my office.
And thanks, Chris, for all your help. You know, I've said this before, but sometimes citizens don't realize you spend a lot of time with all of us separately and your staff that's sitting here, and you know these slides just don't produce themselves, and the numbers and whatnot. I appreciate your sense of urgency and how easily you and your staff have been reachable, you know, to answer questions that I've had, and I'm sure that the commissioners, all of us, feel the same way. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that passed unanimously.
All right, Commissioners, that brings us on to the best part of the night, the announcement of the tentative millage rates. So that's item 1D. As I'm sure you are aware, the Florida trim statutes require that I announce the tentative millage rates, the rollback millage rates, and the percent change from the rollback millage rate into the record to the adoption of the tentative millage rates under agenda item 1E, which is on packet page 64. So without further ado, if it pleases the board, I will begin.
It probably doesn't please the board, but go
I
ahead.
put that in there for that reason. If you guys would like to follow along, it's on page 65 of the packet, or
We're going to wait for the video.
No, I'm good.
page 2.
We'll wait for the movie.
Looks on tape.
All right, well, let me get started then. General Fund 0001, the proposed millage rate is 3.0107. The rollback millage rate is 2.8564. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.4%. Water Pollution Control Fund 1017. The proposed millage rate is 0.0246. The rollback millage rate is 0.0233. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.58%. Conservation Collier Fund 1060. The proposed millage rate is 0.2096. The rollback millage rate is 0.1984. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.65%. Unincorporated General Fund 1011. The proposed millage rate is 0.6844. The rollback millage rate is 0.6506. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.2%. And I apologize, I'm going to on Conservation Collier, I accidentally said 1060. The fund is 1061. Moving on to Golden Gate Community Center, Fund 1605. The proposed millage rate is 0.1862. The rollback millage rate is 0.1786. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.26%. Victoria Park Drainage Fund 1608. The proposed millage rate is 0.3814. The rolled back millage rate is 0.3634. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.95%. Naples Park Drainage Fund 1613. The proposed millage rate is 0.0041. The rolled back millage rate is 0.0039. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.13%. Vanderbilt Beach MSTU Fund 1617. The proposed millage rate is 0.4650. The rollback millage rate is 0.4438. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.78%. Ochapi Fire Control Fund 1040. The proposed millage rate is 4.0000. The rollback millage rate is 3.7959. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.38%. Goodland Horse Island Fire MSTU Fund 1041. The proposed millage rate is 1.2760. The rollback millage rate is 1.1793. The percent change from the rollback rate is 8.20%. Sable Palm MSTU Fund 1619. The proposed millage rate is 1.0000. The rolled back millage rate is 0.0000. This millage is being reinstated, therefore there is no percent change from the rollback rate. Lay League Golf Estates Beautification MSTU Fund 1620. The proposed millage rate is 2.0000. The rolled back millage rate is 1.8930. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.65%. Golden Gate Parkway Beautification MSTU Fund 1621. The proposed millage rate is 0.5000. The rolled back millage rate is 0.4784. The percent change from the rolled back rate is 4.52%. Hawks Ridge Stormwater Pumping MSTU Fund 1622. The proposed millage rate is 0.0318. The rolled back millage rate is 0.0316. The percent change from the rollback rate is 0.63%. Radio Road Beautification MSTU Fund 1625. The proposed millage rate is 0.1000. The rolled back millage rate is 0.0949. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.37%. Forest Lakes Roadway and Drainage MSTU Fund 1626. The proposed millage rate is 2.5000. The rolled back millage rate is 3.7448. The percent change from the rollback rate is negative 33.24%. Immokalee Beautification MSTU Fund 1629. The proposed millage rate is 1.0000. The rollback millage rate is 0.9573. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.46%. Bayshore Avalon Beautification MSTU Fund 1630. The proposed millage rate is 2.1104. The rolled back millage rate is 1.9304. The percent change from the rollback rate is 9.32%. Haldeman Creek Dredging MSTU Fund 1631. The proposed millage rate is 1.0000. The rolled back millage rate is 0.9034. The percent change from the rollback rate is 10.69%. Rock Road MSTU Fund 1632. The proposed millage rate is 0.7224. The rolled back millage rate is 0.7019. The percent change from the rollback rate is 2.92%. Vanderbilt Waterways MSTU Fund 1635. The proposed millage rate is 0.3000. The rolled back millage rate is 0.2859. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.93%. Blue Sage MSTU Fund 1640. The proposed millage rate is 3.0000. The rollback millage rate is 3.0620. The percent change from the rollback rate is negative 2.02%. Collier County Lighting Fund 1601. The proposed millage rate is 0.1025. The rollback millage rate is 0.0977. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.91%. 42nd Avenue Southeast MSTU Fund 1637. The proposed millage rate is 1.0000. The rollback millage rate is 0.8738. The percent change from the rollback rate is 14.44%. Palm River Sidewalk MSTU Fund 1638. The proposed millage rate is 0.5000. The rollback millage rate is 0.4776. The percent change from the rollback rate is 4.69%. Private Road Emergency Repair MSTU Fund 1639. The proposed millage rate is 1.0000. The rollback millage rate is 0.0000. This is the first time a millage will be levied for this MSTU. There is no calculated change from the rollback rate. Pelican Bay MSTU Fund 1008. The proposed millage rate is 0.0857. The rollback millage rate is 0.0811. The percent change from the rollback rate is 5.67%. Commissioners, the aggregate millage rate proposed is 3.7675. The rollback rate is 3.5870, and the percent change from the rollback rate is 5.03%. All right. And Mr. Chairman, that brings us to item 1E, a motion to adopt the tentative millage rates for FY 2026 via resolution would be in order at this time. Tentative millage rates can be adopted by a single majority vote.
Okay, before we take a motion on that, Commissioner McDaniel?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Oh, okay, Commissioner McDaniel, you're recognized for.
Make a motion that we accept those rates as read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passed unanimously.
All right, Commissioners, I will note that for the final hearing, the millage rates can be adopted by a single unanimous vote. If an initial vote is not unanimous for all millage rates, a separate vote will be required for specific tax levies. Specifically, Victoria Park Drainage, Lely Gulf Estates Beautification, Bayshore Avalon Beautification, Haldeman Creek Dredging, Vanderbilt Waterways MSTU, 42nd Avenue Southeast MSTU, and the Pelican Bay MSTU, based on their respective districts' DR 420 MMPs, maximum millage calculations, will require a 2/3 majority vote. And then similarly, the Private Road Emergency Repair MSTU, being a new MSTU, will require a unanimous vote. So moving on from there, Commissioners, any questions on any of those votes at all?
Commissioner McDaniel?
I just had one question, and I wanted to just clarify. I know we've had discussions in the past, but these individual MSTUs for these different expense programs throughout the community, we've gone through those budgets and you've recommended rates for these MSTUs based upon accumulated expenses that have arisen in the last couple of years, plus a reserve amount.
Yeah, I 10-4. For depending on what kind of MSTU they are, their operating expenses for next year and the capital needs moving forward. So,
Okay,
correct.
I wanted to clarify that. Don't say 10-4 because somebody will be picking that as a number. Just say yes.
I'm sorry. You caught me off guard for a second, Commissioner.
Caught me off guard.
Raise the taxes 10.4.
What was I going to say about that?
Nothing.
Oh, and the advisory boards have also weighed in on each of the MSTUs that have advisory boards. So
Ready for that motion? 1F.
next. All right. So moving on to item 1F, it's the resolution to adopt the amended tentative budget. Commissioners, if you refer to tab 1F, starting on packet page 67, where you'll find the resolution providing for adoption of the FY 2026 amended tentative budget. Your action on this item will include the changes discussed under agenda item 1B. The amended tentative budget can be adopted by a single majority vote.
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion. Do you need any clarification on that, or is that sufficient?
That's
okay.
that's sufficient.
We have a motion second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, it passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners. All right, moving on to item 1G, the announcement of the final public hearing. The final public hearing on the FY 25-26 Collier County budget will be Thursday, September 18th, 2025 at 5:05 p.m. It'll be at the Collier County Government Complex, W. Harmon Turner, Building F, which is this building on the 3rd floor boardroom. That's in Naples, Florida, 34112. And that is all I have for today.
Any further discussion, any comments from the commission? Seeing none, we are adjourned.